Good morning, students. In this class, I am going to begin with another new chapter from the unit Ecology, that is Biodiversity and Conservation. Biodiversity and conservation carries 4 marks for your final examination. What you are going to study in this chapter, Biodiversity and Conservation, a synopsis you will now know. First, you will study about the biodiversity, what is meant by biodiversity, levels of biodiversity. Yes, there are 3 levels that you will study. Patterns of biodiversity. Biodiversity is not constant, it is not same. It varies from one region to the another region. And another, it is importance of species diversity to an ecosystem. After that, you will study loss of biodiversity. Okay, what is meant by loss of biodiversity and causes of biodiversity loss. The next is conservation of biodiversity. How can be biodiversity being conserved? Conservation of biodiversity. These all you will be going to study in this chapter, that is biodiversity and conservation. The term biodiversity is the shortened form of 2 words. Biological and another is diversity. Biodiversity is the shortened form of 2 words, biological and another is diversity. Biodiversity is defined as sum total of species richness. Sum total of species richness. Another definition. Collection of all forms of life is called biodiversity. Another definition. Variety and variability among living organisms. Or one more, totality of genes, species and ecosystems of a region is called as biodiversity. Biodiversity means the different types of the life forms, living organisms found on the earth surface, or it might be in a particular region, that we consider as biodiversity. Diversity means variety of life forms existing on the earth or in a particular region, that we consider as biodiversity. Okay, so we could find the varieties of life forms of a region or on the earth surface. The term biodiversity was first coined by Walter G. Rosen. It was coined by Walter G. Rosen. Later, the term biodiversity was popularized by Edward Wilson. The term biodiversity was popularized by Edward Wilson. He is a sociobiologist and also considered as father of biodiversity, Edward Wilson. But the term biodiversity was only coined, it was coined by Walter G. Rosen. So what is meant by biodiversity? It is the variety of life forms, living organisms existing in a particular region or a area, or it might be whole throughout the earth. Okay, so plants, animals, microorganisms all together constitute the biodiversity. This biodiversity exists at 3 levels. Okay, we can find hierarchy. Okay, so similarly we can find the biodiversity. The 3 levels of biodiversity are species diversity, genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. The 3 levels of biodiversity are genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Genetic diversity. Genetic variations within a species is called genetic diversity. Genetic variation within a species is called genetic diversity, or the variations at the level of genes within a single species is called genetic diversity. Variations at the level of genes within a single species is called genetic diversity. Okay, so within the individuals of a species we could find the variation differences, so that we call it as genetic diversity. Genetic variations within the single species, that is genetic diversity. The number of chromosomes present in one species varies from the another. The chromosomal number is not same from one organism to the, from one species to the another species. For example, the number of chromosomes found in mycoplasm or the genes 450 to 700. The number of genes varies from one species to one organism to the another. Mycoplasm, you know, it is a bacteria, prokaryotic organisms. It is mycoplasm are included under the kingdom Monera. Mycoplasm includes 450 to 700 genes. E. coli 4000 genes. Drosophila melanogaster fruit fly, it includes 30,000 genes, 13,000. Oryza sativa 32,000 to 50,000 genes. The number of genes are found. In humans, Homo sapiens human beings, 30,000 to 50,000 number of genes are being present. So number of chromosomes or the genes varies from one species to another species. A single species might show variations at the genetic level. Why do the variations occur among the individuals of a single species? It might be due to the mutations. Okay, so we could find the differences will be seen among the individuals of a single species. Different looking individuals of same species. So due to that variations, the individuals, they look differently, and we can find there will be a formation of subgroups within a single species, and those subgroups of a single species, they are called as intra-specific categories, intra within the species. So due to the variations which occurs at the level of genes, species or the chromosomes within the individuals, among the individuals of a single species, okay, so the individuals, they look differently and forming the subgroups, and the subgroups are called as intra-specific categories, like subspecies. It can be called, subgroups can be called as subspecies. They can be called as varieties. Yes, or they are called as, subgroups can be called as races, or it can be called as strains. Due to the genetic diversity, the variations at the level of genes, so what happens, there occurs a intraspecific categories which can be called as subspecies, varieties, races, or it can be called as the strains or ecotypes. They occur below the species. Yes. So the different looking individuals of a single species, they are called as polymorphs. Polymorphs. When are polymorphs formed? Due to the genetic diversity. Different looking individuals of same species. How to understand this genetic diversity? Okay, so genetic diversity can be understood by taking some few examples. Like for example, human beings. All the human beings present on the earth surface, okay, they belong to a species called sapiens. Scientific name, it is Homo sapiens. Due to this, okay, genetic diversity, we could find among the individuals of the humans, so we could find their forms as subgroups, and we could find different human races are being formed, like negroids, mongoloids, cassopoids, australoids. Why are these subgroups formed? And those subgroups we can call it as races. We call it as races in case of the humans. It is due to the variations which have been occurred, differences which have been occurred at the level of genes or alleles within the single species. All the human beings present on earth, the humans, they belong to a species called as sapiens, but among that, okay, we could find the intraspecific categories or subgroups, and those subgroups are called as races. Another example, Rolfia vomitoria, a medicinal plant. Rolfia vomitoria, a medicinal plant which is found growing in different ranges of Himalayas. It grows in different ranges of Himalayas. Shows genetic diversity in production of a chemical called reserpine. Reserpine. How it shows chemical? Yes, it's an example for genetic diversity. This plant, Rolfia vomitoria, it is a medicinal plant. Where it grows? It grows in the Himalayan ranges. Okay, Himalayan mountain regions. This plant produces out a chemical called as reserpine. Reserpine is used for treatment of, okay, yes, blood pressure. Okay, so in humans. So the chemical produced by the plant Rolfia vomitoria, it varies in concentration and potency. The all plants, they belong to a single species, but they show with changes, variations. The amount of reserpine produced varies from one plant to the another in different Himalayan ranges. Is another example for the genetic diversity. So this plant, Rolfia vomitoria medicinal plant, is an example for genetic diversity. So it shows a, yes, where we could find variations at the levels of genes, due to which the chemical produced reserpine. Okay, so amount of reserpine produced from one plant to the another plant will be varying. Another example, mango. The scientific name Mangifera indica. Mangifera indica. So the mango trees found in India, how many varieties are there? 1,000 varieties of mangoes are found in India. So how many? 1,000 varieties of mangoes are found in India. Yes. So it is an example for genetic diversity. Okay, all plants, mango plants, they belong to, yes, the scientific name Mangifera indica, like Alfonso, Totapuri, Bengalpalli, Malgova. So these are different varieties of mangoes. Similarly, in India, we could find rice. We could find different types of the rice. 50,000 strains of rice are found in India. Like mangoes, 1,000 varieties, 50,000 strains of rice are found in India is another best example for genetic diversity. Sona Masuri, Basmati, boiled rice. Okay, so likewise, so we different strains of rice we could find around 50,000 strains. Okay, so due to the variations that occurs at the level of genes within individuals of a single species, that leads to a formation of subgroups within a single species. Okay, and those we call it as intra-specific categories. Okay, that is called as genetic diversity. Yes, genetic diversity means genetic variation within a single species. Species diversity. Diversity at a species level is called species diversity, or different types of varieties of a species existing within an area is called species diversity. What is meant by species? Group of individuals with fundamental similarities and can interbreed to produce a fertile offspring is called as a species. So in a particular area where we could find a different species which are been existing, that we consider as a species richness. Okay, we can compare the species richness from one region, from one geographical area to the another. Different varieties of a species, different forms of species found in a particular area, that we consider as a species diversity. Diversity at species level, it is species diversity. To understand a species diversity, we should know species richness and species evenness. Species richness and species evenness. What is meant by species richness? The number of different species of a region is called as species richness. The different species existing within an area, it is called as species richness. What is species evenness? Relative abundance of each species in a region is called as species evenness. What is that species evenness? Or number of individuals of each species found in a given region of or a area is called as species evenness. To understand this, we can take a three areas, a geographical region. In area 1, we could find the 3 different bird species are being found. 3 bird species are being found. Okay. Here we are not considering how many individuals of each bird species are present. So we are considering how many different species are being present. So that is called as species richness. Okay, species richness, the number of species found in a region, that is called as species richness. So area 1 shows species richness. How many bird species are found? 3 different bird species. Okay, species richness. Area 2, in this region also we could find the same bird species, but how many individuals are there? It is 3 individuals. For example, yes. So we could find 3 individuals. Just I am giving us a number. So equal number of 3 bird species are found in the second area. It shows species evenness. Not only different species are present, but its individuals, the number of individuals are almost same. Okay, the number of individuals of each species or relative abundance of each species. Okay, so not only the same 3 bird species are present, but also the number of individuals of these 3 bird species are same. So this area shows species evenness. And the third area, not only having the 3 bird species, but also we could find other taxonomic group of organisms are being found, unrelated. Okay, like ants, elephants are also present. It shows diversity, higher diversity. It shows diversity. Okay, biodiversity. Diversity at a species level, it is called species diversity. Okay, to understand species diversity, we should know species richness, species evenness. Species richness means different species existing within a particular area. Evenness, the number of individuals of each species or relative abundance of each species. Another example, when we compare, in India we could find the we are comparing 2 Ghat regions, Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. What we are comparing in these 2 Ghat regions, areas? The amphibian species. Once taxonomic category we are taking, that is the amphibians. So amphibian species are found more in amphibian species, frogs, amphibians, are more in Western Ghats than in Eastern Ghats. So more frogs are found in Western Ghats than the Eastern Ghats because the climatic conditions, the environmental conditions are favorable for the amphibians, the frogs, to take up the area as its habitat. Okay, so hence we could find more the frogs are found in Western Ghats than the Eastern Ghats. The third is called ecosystem, or it's also called as ecological diversity. Ecological diversity or ecosystem diversity. The diversity at ecosystem level is called ecosystem diversity, or the different ecosystem existing within an area, geographical area, is called as ecosystem diversity. A country like India, yes, we could find different types of ecosystems like deserts, mangroves, yes, or alpine meadows, yes, forest we could find, deserts, mangroves, alpine meadows, sundarbans, forest. Okay, so there are different types of ecosystems existing within an area that we call it as ecosystem diversity. So when we compare India, a country like India with a Scandinavian country, okay, so India is smaller when compared to the Scandinavian country, but India has more the ecosystems with rich of the species, rich biodiversity. So that is called as ecosystem diversity. So different ecosystems of a geographical region. So biodiversity exists at three levels: genetic level, species level, and the ecosystem level. Okay, so if it is asked for 5 mark, you will write the definitions and explain with the examples. Thank you.